On the last show, I was asked, somebody said, what 3 words would you say to a flat earther?
It's a great question.
And I said, well, I don't need 3 words, I only need 2. But this is a...
It's never been more exciting, has it? The whole space industry. Well, no, I suppose back in the 60s it was pretty darn exciting.
Yeah, it was really exciting then, of course. And I think we're approaching that kind of level of excitement and innovation. We've got, 2 big companies, SpaceX and Blue Origin, have just launched in the last week. On the space shuttle, if you wanted to fly 1 kilogram into orbit, it cost about $53,000. We can do that now for about $1,200 on a SpaceX. And with Starship, the new rocket, that is
$1,200. Wow.
And that's expected to come down to the region of maybe $200 to $500. Mars is really different. So space station, 400 kilometers, moon, 400,000 kilometers, Mars, 400 million kilometers. And, Mars...
It's like going to Ipswich,
yeah.
Isn't it? What do you think about the human populating of space and beyond?
Well, I think that's inevitable. I mean, we are now talking 50, 100, 200 years into the future, I think.
You just go further and further and further.
Yeah, I mean, going beyond Mars, now that's really challenging. Right. Mars is achievable with today's technology, but to Jupiter, that's going to be really difficult.
Virgin Radio.
Oh, my goodness me. We love Fridays. They don't have to be better, but they're about to get so much better. We have a superstar, a Superman in our midst. He's a friend of the show and he's a favourite of the show. We hope the feeling is mutual. We also have some Carfest buddies here. Hello, guys. Good morning. Hey! Hi, Sam. Good morning. It's like being on stage actually at Carfest. All right, Masters, over to you.
Our next guest will take us from astronaut to 60 and then to infinity and beyond. He's the real-life rocket man, blasting across the country this autumn with his new tour, Astronauts, the quest to explore space. And you're never lost in space when you reach Peake. Tim Peake!
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you, Bessos.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Chris.
Oh, my gosh. It's so nice to see you again.
You too, yeah. In a busy studio this morning.
And so much to talk about. The planets aligning this week on Tuesday night.
That's been amazing.
Tell us about that. Come on.
I was out last night and I had spectacular, because the night before was a bit cloudy where I was, but last night went out just after sunset. Venus and Saturn, as in the west where the sun's setting, and then Jupiter overhead. I got these stabilised binoculars, so I was able to see 4 of Jupiter's moons, which were good. Yeah, I love them because you can kind of put them in your rucksack and carry them everywhere.
Hang on a minute. What a stabilised binoculars.
Well, when you've got a normal set of binos, it's really hard to hold them steady on the stars. But there's a little button on top of these things and you press it,
right,
and it's got batteries and some gyro stabilisation in there.
Gyros!
And it means you can fix on something like a planet or a star, and it's nice. It holds it steady for you.
You mean gyros, because that's how motorbikes stay up, isn't it? They have the gyro effect, like Ducatis, don't they? They don't they? And other motorcycles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, we have some potential motorcycle sponsors in for Carfest. Keep going. So do you have a telescope?
I haven't got a telescope. I just use the binos. I prefer them, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
wow. We did some telescope news, didn't we, on Monday and Tuesday? Because you can get these great telescopes now. You look through them, and binoculars, and they have software in them, and it tells you what you're looking at as you're looking at them, and it names the planets.
Yes, yeah.
It's amazing.
And they are better for doing photography. So if you want to just use your smartphone and take pictures of Jupiter through a telescope, then that's better to do it.
Tim, Spaceman Tim. You've now got me thinking about what kind of photographs you must have in your house. I bet they're like the best photographs ever, aren't they?
There are 1 or 2.
Come on, tell us.
I've got a great
one.
one.
Go have a photograph off with Tim Peake, whatever you do.
I've got the selfie I did from my spacewalk, which is probably my favourite one. Because I've got the visor down, the gold visor down, and reflected in the helmet is the whole of planet Earth.
Okay, anybody got any selfie that comes close to the selfie that I took on my spacewalk? That's just ruining it for everyone. If this was a dinner party, go, get the dessert out. Come on, you all need to be gone in 10 minutes. He's just played the selfie on my spacewalk card. Oh, my gosh. Tim, we have... It's never been more exciting, has it? The whole space industry, I don't think, is... Well, no, I suppose back in the 60s it was pretty darn exciting.
Yeah, it was really exciting there, of course. And I think we're approaching that kind of level of excitement and innovation. We've got, two big companies, SpaceX and Blue Origin, have just launched in the last week, massive rockets. These things are the SpaceX is the size of a Saturn V, and Blue Origin's New Glenn is bigger than the Statue of Liberty. So these are kind of going to the moon type scale of rockets. And it's incredibly exciting to see.
It is exciting, and it's not all hype, is it? Because there's just too much money involved. But the burning desire of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and you can think what you like about either of them, of course you can. But when you hear them talking about their passion for space and trailblazing and breaking down barriers and literally reaching new frontiers, it's so engaging, and they clearly mean it, because you can't do what they're doing, as a side hustle.
No, they're absolutely passionate about what they're doing, and it is breaking boundaries, new technologies which will have massive spin-offs into all sorts of other areas, and bringing down the cost of access to space. So we can now do more in space, things that we didn't think we'd be able to do for maybe 50, 100 years, things like solar power coming from space, because they brought the cost of getting up there down.
Yeah, getting up there down.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, getting down while you're up there, man, which is what you did a lot with your selfie and your guitar and all, which was awesome, by the way. Absolutely 100% awesome. Somebody described the other day, they were saying, somebody was having a little bit of a pushback going, what's all this big deal? So about reusable rockets, they cost so much money anyway. And somebody simply said, look, can you imagine the cost of flying somewhere if every time you landed, they threw the plane you landed in off a cliff after you'd all disembarked?
Absolutely.
Because that's where we are, isn't it?
That's effectively what we did with the Apollo era. The spacecraft itself came back. That was 1% of the entire rocket, and then that went to a museum. It never flew again.
Yeah.
So today, with reusing the boosters, reusing the spacecraft, reusing the fairings.
What is the savings? What is as a percentage of the initial cost? What would the saving be, or the savings of the next flight, because you have all those reusable bits?
Well, it's huge. So to put it into a comparison, on the space shuttle, if you wanted to fly 1 kilogram into orbit, it cost about $53,000. We can do that now for about $1,200 on a SpaceX, and with Starship, the new rocket, that is
$1,200. Wow!
And that's expected to come down to the region of maybe $200 to $500. So you can do a lot when you can fly, more payload to orbit for much, much cheaper cost.
So we could send a 1 kilogram package to space for like £300-400.
On Starship, that's the anticipated cost.
That's not bad, is it? I mean, it's really not bad at all. Noah sent something to eBay on Wednesday, and I'm not being cute. It was £13. You think, but that's not that far off, is it? I mean, I don't know where we'd send it to, who we'd send it to, because that's the other thing. Where are we sending these things to? But payload-wise, what's the most useful thing you can be putting in these payloads to progress? How are you with the population of space? Well, do you think that's the thing?
It's a busy place. We know the number of satellites that are going up there is increasing exponentially. But to put in comparison, we've still got fewer satellites in space than there are aircraft right now flying in our skies.
Right,
and space is a big place. But we do need to be careful about it, and we do need to regulate how much goes up there.
And what do you think about the human populating of space and beyond?
Well, I think that's inevitable. I mean, we are now talking 50, 100, 200 years into the future, I think, in terms of large numbers of the population going off to colonize the moon or to Mars. But I think that is an inevitability of our nature, our desire to explore.
Just go further and further and further.
Yeah, I mean, going beyond Mars, now that's really challenging. Right. Mars is achievable with today's technology, but to Jupiter, that's going to be really difficult.
And they do talk, don't they, about the sort of the initial genuine colonization of space being more via a space station or a space city than the moon or Mars. Is that right?
Yeah, that's another theory, is actually, having big populated space stations which can provide an artificial gravity environment.
Like a space dome or something?
Yeah, something that might be rotating, and so you can actually, normal physiological processes. You don't have to be floating around in weightlessness all the time. So there are all sorts of concepts about how we may live off the planet.
And you could go there literally for a weekend. So you could go there for a weekend break.
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's probably going to be driven, as it is right now, by space tourism.
And then as they become more sort of outer space venues or residents or whatever you call become more accessible, there is talk, fast forward like 100, I don't know how many years, probably less than we think, that they will become the main residences, and then Earth will be where you go for the weekend. It could actually completely invert, or...
It could indeed, yes, yeah. And also, we can use what we find as we explore the resources, the knowledge, the technology to improve life here on Earth.
You're going to talk about all this on your tour?
Yeah, we talk a bit about that on the tour as well. We go right from back to the 1950s, the early days of the space race, all the way through from the Apollo era, Mir space stations, shuttle.
What is that amazing Ron Howard documentary that I should watch every 3 months?
Oh, which one? Sorry,
Ron Howard made a brilliant documentary that was nominated for Oscars, and it's all from original footage from back in the day.
Right, from the Apollo era.
Yeah,
yes,
and there's no narration. It's just just I can't remember what it's called.
They're incredible. I tell you what, one thing that really influenced me as well was the Moonwalkers, which was on display here in London with Tom Hanks, and that is this immersive visual experience, which is just incredible.
Well, hang on a minute. We can say you're one of the few people in the world that we say, how did it compare?
Yes.
Because we only get to do that, but you've been able to do both.
Yeah, I mean, it's a visceral experience launching on a rocket. I remember
I was looking at your holiday photos.
Yeah. I was sat in the light room, and you're just bombarded by noise from all four corners,
right.
And there's visual effects, and it is as close as you can get to a rocket launch. It was really amazing.
So is it still on or not?
I don't think it's on at the moment. They did extend it, but that's what I've tried to recreate in our show as well.
All right, astronauts, the quest to explore space tour dates. It starts in September, Inverness, Eden Court, a couple of nights there, Aberdeen, Dunfermline throughout September, Kendal, Carlisle, latest generally, Guildford, Eastbourne, Basingstoke, Southend, Cheltenham, Bournemouth, Tunbridge Wells, Northampton, Buxton, Stockton, Peterborough, Wolverhampton, Reading, and then into October, Fareham, Weymouth, Oxford, Aylesbury, Cardiff, High Wycombe, Worthing, Derby, Chester, New Brighton, and Llandudno. And there are matinee performances as well. I'm sure dates will be added. But this tour is already good to go, is it?
It's good to go. We did it also in autumn last year. Absolutely loved it. It was so much fun.
Did you learn anything that you've changed?
No, I learned so much during the research for it. And we're also going to update it, change it a bit for this year. The new things have been happening, so adding stuff in there as well. There's a 10-minute Q&A session in the second half, which is always fun. Opening it up to the audience. You're never quite sure what you're going to get.
Well, you're never quite sure, but you've done loads of those. You've done it at Carfest for us. Thank you for everything you've ever done for us. I really appreciate it. You must now have a treasure trove of answers to questions you're sort of always going to be asked.
Yes, but I always like to, every time anyone asks me a question, I think freshly about it, because you want to, give a genuine answer.
And you're brilliant at that, and I'm not suggesting any otherwise. All I wanted to ask you was, when was the last time you were asked a question you haven't been asked in a Q&A session?
Oh,
because we're not that imaginative, are we? We think we are.
It's always something funny. I remember on the last show I was asked, somebody said, "What 3 words would you say to a flat earther?" And I thought, that's a strange question. And
it's a great question.
And I said, "Well, I don't need 3 words. I only need 2." But this is a family. Yeah.
Wow.
This is a family-friendly show, so I'm afraid I can't say them.
God, Tim's getting punchy. This is the punchy Peake we're having here. I like punchy Peake. But with Bezos and with Musk, Musk is now actually making a profit, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
SpaceX makes a serious amount of money now.
Yes, so they're launching more rockets than any other company.
And when he put his $100 million that he had left from his sale of PayPal or whatever it was into SpaceX, all his mates said, "You are mad. You might as well set fire to it. You're going to have more fun." And in a way, he sort of has set fire to bits of it, depending on what goes on with various launches. But here he is making a profit.
It is phenomenal. And to put this in comparison, he's done a launch just recently. He's got another 25 test flights planned for Starship this year.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal. 25 of those things, the size of a Saturn V, ready to go this year. And
when you first witnessed his returning rocket being caught by his chopstick launch tower,
the Mechzilla. Yes.
Yeah, what? Did you watch it live? Can you take us through your emotions?
I did watch it live. I mean, it was unbelievable because I think he himself gave it about a 50% chance of success, and that's his attitude to risk and to innovation is test and fail. So when it was coming down, nobody was quite sure, and it came down much quicker than I expected. And when it flew in towards the arms, again, it was at quite an angle. I was expecting it to be more vertical, and it wasn't. It was kind of at an angle, and it flew in quite rapidly. I thought, well, this is headed for disaster. It's going to destroy the entire tower. And then at the last minute, everything stabilized. It righted itself, and the arms came in and captured it. And I think, along with the rest of the world who was watching, I was absolutely mesmerised.
Well, yes, along with the rest of the world that was watching, but it's different for you. I mean, just you describing it there, I saw it live as well. I think that you must have been probably overwhelmed with positive thoughts and the possibilities, especially now you're describing it's coming in. We just thought that's how it's supposed to happen. You're like, this is not going to end well. And then when it did, you must have been elated, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some seriously difficult technology going on there to stabilise something that size.
It's so unaerodynamic from a manoeuvrability point of view, especially when it goes into reverse, then it goes sideways. You think, hang on, how is it doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be able to have enough fuel to do that, having already launched a big payload into orbit as well.
And so over the next 25 flights, what do you think he and Jeff Bezos with his flights as well, what are they going to discover? What is their arc of what is their plan? What do they want to what are they going to discover that they can take forward? How does this particular chapter end?
So it's quite interesting. With New Glenn, with Blue Origin, they successfully got their spacecraft into orbit, but they didn't successfully retrieve the booster. So they've got to perfect that.
Right.
With Starship on this test flight, they managed to retrieve the booster, but didn't get the Starship into orbit successfully, which they have done in the past.
Right.
But they have to now perfect tanking, so in-orbit tanking operations, because that's how they're going to get to the moon. They're going to fly up a Starship, which is going to be quite light, and then refuel it in low Earth orbit to give it enough fuel to then go off to the moon to be able to do its landing. So that's
sounds like he knows what he's talking about, doesn't
technology.
it? It's quite incredible. Obviously, with all these extra rockets, these extra flights, surely there's call for more astronauts. Tim, come on!
Absolutely, yes. I'm really following that closely. We've got more British astronauts in training with the European Space Agency, which is really exciting. I'm working with Axiom Space, an American company who want to put together an all-British mission, which is really exciting as well, commercially sponsored. So that could be going ahead in the next couple of years if all goes well.
What do you think, next 10, 20 years, what do you think, what are we going to see that we haven't seen before? How far are we going to witness within our lifetime? Say like I'm nearly 60 now. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 52.
52. Who's faring better, him or me? I know. It's not fair. It doesn't matter. What do you think we'll witness? How far will we get in this story?
Well, I think the most exciting thing at the moment scheduled for 2027 is boots on the moon again. And, there's whole generations that haven't seen it. I was 8 months old when Apollo 17 left the surface of the moon, so I don't remember people landing on the surface of the moon. So seeing that with today's technology, 4K HD cameras that are going to send that back to us is going to be absolutely mesmerizing for everybody who watches that. And then that's just the start of colonizing the moon, setting up a research laboratory at the South Pole, which will happen at the end of this decade. And then into the middle of next decade, we can really start to look forward to that first human mission to Mars. It could even be sooner than that. NASA are kind of predicting towards the end of next decade.
Are you certain it's going to happen?
I'm certain it's going to happen. It's just a question of when.
Wow. And how much further on how much more difficult is it to get to Mars than the moon?
Mars is really different. So space station, 400 kilometres, moon, 400,000 kilometres, Mars, 400 million kilometres. And, Mars...
It's like going to Ipswich,
yeah,
isn't it? Which just feels like it's 400 miles away. 400 million miles away, rather.
Long way away. And, of course, the planets don't play ball. So Mars goes round slower than Earth. Earth's on the inside track,
What's
if you
a Mars
like.
year? How long does
Mars takes 2 years to go around the planet.
Right.
Earth, obviously, 1 year. So after a year, Mars and Earth are on opposite sides of the sun, which isn't convenient. So when you send a crew there, it's likely to be a 3-year mission.
All these variables. I mean, the flat earthers or the people who say that the space landing was faked and it's all filmed in Hollywood and this kind of stuff. By the way, I don't agree with them at all. Right? But when you hear about all the variables and then you watch the documentaries about the space station docking and the first landing and how that nearly didn't happen, and it's amazing. I mean, we talk often about it's an amazing any movie ever gets made because there's so many moving parts. Elon Musk talks about the fact that it's fine to design a car, but to get a car to roll car after car after car to roll off the production line
Yeah.
with nothing wrong, when there's 10,000 things that go wrong with every car every time a car is made.
Yes.
How many, what's the equivalent of that from a trip to Mars? How many things can go wrong? How many things have you got to get right? Where is the margin of error?
So much has to be right. It really does. But having said that, space is difficult. That's why we see so many failures. I was really surprised when I got to the space station, actually quite how rudimentary parts of it were. And the point there is it just has to be good enough, because if you're striving for absolute perfection all the time, you'll just never do the mission. You have to at some point say, that's good enough. The crew will be able to handle this. Let's launch it and fly it.
Yeah. And it's like most things, isn't it? It's like normal flights. All the dangers, and usually in the takeoff and the landing, usually.
Yes. Yeah.
And once you're on your vector to wherever you're going, that's sort of the universe is helping you with that.
Yeah. Generally speaking, that's the safer part.
Wow. Just quickly, because I mentioned it earlier on the show, there's an amazing interview that you have conducted, or Sarah from the Key Clinic conducted with you.
Yeah.
Is that because I heard yesterday from my wife, because we have connections with the Key Clinic because of our children and because of retained reflexes. Is it true that when you return from space, you may suffer from temporary dyspraxia and dyslexia?
Yes. In fact, I first heard Sarah when she was talking to you on this show, and that kind of triggered my interest. And when we first get back from space, it's quite usual for the first 48 hours to have symptoms of dyspraxia. So that's balance and coordination, really.
Understandable.
Your whole vestibular system is in disarray. You've just come from 6 months of weightlessness where all the fluid in your inner ear has been floating around, and your brain really relies on the information coming from just your eyes. Right. Otherwise, it makes you feel really sick. So that's what stops the nausea. And then when you get back down to Earth, the ears have to kick in again, and then that causes this conflict in the brain. It's just amazing how our body is so incredible, because it's trying to adapt to be as good as it can be for space. And then we have this neuroplasticity that allows it to learn how to do that, but then it has to relearn how to be a good human being back on Earth again in a gravity environment.
Right, so did you pick up any tips from Sarah?
Well, yeah, it was interesting because a lot of the kind of balance and coordination, this sort of allowing the brain to relearn or get rid of these retained reflexes, and some of the exercises they do,
so
I think they could be implemented in part of our rehabilitation program when we come back from space.
Well, well done. And well done for getting in contact with her. And apparently it's a fascinating interview. I haven't seen it, but Tash, my wife, watched it yesterday. She said, you've got to talk to him about this.
Yeah.
Stephen says, morning, Chris Vass and the team. Please pass my genuine thanks to Tim Peake. He was forced to cancel his show in Cambridge in October due to the venue flooding. I'd bid for a meet and greet, and my sons, Sol and Milo, were devastated as they are huge fans of Tim. When Tim found out, he sent the boys a full pack of signed books, key rings, patches, and a personal note for each of them. A lovely touch, and the boys have treasured their gift.
Thank you. I should point out they fixed the roof at the Corn Exchange as well, so it's not leaking anymore.
More importantly, Kate says, morning all, please can you ask Tim Peake if his show is suitable for children? No. Of course it is.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Kate.
Absolutely.
Politely. Yeah, of course it is. No, kids love this show. By the way, this is why Tim's on. We've got to plug it again. nothird.co.uk/live. If you're going to buy tickets for anything for your family, then Carfest is where you need to go. Carfest.org. And then after straight after that, if you've got any money left, nothird.co.uk/live for astronauts, the quest to explore space. What are you going to do between now and then, Tim? What are you up to?
Oh, very busy. So work with Axiom. I've also got some interesting work going on with outreach programs as well, possibly some TV work as well. So all sorts of different irons in the fire.
Great. Well, you're amazing, Tim. I love you so much. Are you still living in a rental, or do you have...
No, managed to buy our own place now.
You're so busy, weren't you?
I've been doing a renovation project for the last year.
All right, mate.
Yeah, my DIY skills have
Can
improved.
we hear it, please, for the amazing Tim Peake? There you go. Brilliant. Once again, nothird.co.uk/live. Tickets on sale now for his September-October tour.